Radyo Migrante every Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. on CHRY 105.5 FM.
Magandang gabi po sa lahat naman nakikinig sa atin dito lamang sa ating Radyo Migrante sa CHRY 105.5 FM, your leading source for diversity. Maaari nyo rin kami pakinggan sa www.chry.fm at i-click lamang ang Listen Live, Bell 5973, Rogers Digital Cable 945 o sa tunein.com sa inyong mga web browsers or sa mga smartphones. Ngayong gabi po, ang makakasama nyo po ay inyong tagapaglingkod na si Rhea Gamana at Ish Cabanya. Happy World Pride Day po sa lahat sa buong mundo. Ish, bumati ka naman.
In solidarity with all our brothers, sisters, however you identify yourselves, Happy World Pride.
Yes, Happy World Pride po sa lahat. Sa lahat po na ng mga kababayan natin in solidarity sa buong mundo po. And tonight, dito lamang sa Radyo Migrante, pag-uusapan natin, ano nga ba itong globalization na ito? At paano ba ito makaka-apekto sa mga kababayan nating mga migranteng manggagawa dito sa Canada? At makukuha po natin ang ibig sabihin ng globalization, on a migrants approach. So this time po makakasama natin ngayong gabi ay si Joey Calugay. Siya po ang coordinator ng Montreal-based Immigrant Workers Centre or IWC at community organizer din po siya in charge ng Temporary Foreign Workers Program campaign para po sa nasabing institution. So malalaman po natin ngayong gabi, ang Pilipinas ba isang next Asian miracle? Sasagutin po ni Joey Calugay mamaya po. But before that, news and headlines muna tayo. Go ahead, Ish.
Yes, so for our news and headlines, we have 3 tonight. So I'll just read off the titles. Journalist rights group slam promotion of military officials involved in Ampatuan massacre. Defense witnesses in abduction case of 2 UP students no show again. Government lobbying for Pinoy to get Nobel Peace Prize nomination. So, for our first news, journalists rights group slam promotion of military officials involved in Ampatuan massacre. From Manila, this is from bulatlat.com. Colonel Medardo Gislani of the Philippine Army was promoted to Brigadier General shortly after he was cleared by the Office of the Ombudsman and was defended by the Army spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Noel de Toyato, said in a news report. However, the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines said in its statement, the promotion of Gislani is an insult to the victims of the Ampatuan massacre, which claimed the lives of 58 people, including 32 journalists and 2 human rights lawyers nearly 5 years ago. Gislani, according to the NUJP, was at the time the commander of the 601st Brigade of the Philippine Army, whose, in quotes, failure or more accurately refusal to act on a request from Ismael Magodadatu, who was then running for governor against a member of the Ampatuan clan, for security escorts for the convoy, and again when he was informed by an intelligence team that scores of gunmen had stopped the convoy in Barangay Salman, Ampatuan, and had taken the vehicle towards the hinterlands, followed by a backhoe that may have sealed the fate of the Ampatuan 58. Unquote.
Next news is defense witnesses in abduction case of 2 University of the Philippines students no show again. This is from bulatlat.com. In Malolos, Bulacan, for the nth time, the defense failed to present any of its witnesses in the continuing hearings on the enforced disappearances of University of the Philippines or UP students Karen Empeño and Sherlyn Cadapan. In a hearing on June 23rd at the Bulacan Regional Trial Court, Branch 14th, Abner Torres, lawyer of one of the accused, said their witness, General Herbert Yambing, purportedly had to attend turnover ceremonies at the Department of National Defense, and another witness is in Mindanao. 5 military officers, including retired General Jovito Palparan Jr., have been charged with kidnapping and serious illegal detention in relation to the disappearance of Karen and Sherlyn almost 8 years ago. Palparan and Master Sergeant Rizal Hilario have yet to be arrested, while 2 of the accused, Colonel Felipe Anotado Jr. and Staff Sergeant Edgardo Osorio, surrendered to authorities after the issuance of the warrants of arrest in December 2011. Master Sergeant Donald Caigas, the other accused, is already dead. According to Judge Teodora Gonzalez of Bulacan RTC Branch 22, who told Torres, in quote, "You are delaying the presentation of your evidence," end quote. Gonzalez said there is no need to present Yambing because the only fact to be presented by Yambing regarding the assignment of anotado. State Prosecutor Irwin Maraya, said the court should terminate the presentation of evidence. He said in quote, "It is unfortunate that the witnesses are not here. The court has given them a deadline and the prosecution has not objected in the past. The presentation of evidence started last year," end quote.
Government lobbying for Pinoy to get Nobel Peace Prize nomination. Leftist group says no. In a statement sent to media outlets, Bayan opposed the lobbied nomination over human rights violations that continue under his watch. The government's peace panel in the Bangsamoro talks was nominated by the Green Party. Only groups or individuals can submit nominations. In quote, "Aquino is highly unqualified for such an award. The Nobel Peace Prize hits a new low with the nomination of Aquino, who uses the U.S.-instigated counterinsurgency program Oplan Bayanihan as a weapon of deception and repression," unquote, Bayan said. It enumerated the human rights violations under Aquino's 4-year-old regime to include the militarization of peasant communities. 192 cases of extrajudicial killing, 21 cases of enforced disappearances, and numerous illegal arrests, along with 400 political prisoners. The statement also highlighted the U.S. military intervention and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. And at the same time, Bayan said, Aquino has failed to address the socio-economic and political roots of the armed conflict. All those are your news for tonight, June 29th, 2014. And we're still here at Radyo Migrante. We're celebrating World Pride here as well.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we've been there earlier, and we'll play some snippets of our interview for our man of the street, Pulso ng Migrante. But for our feature interview, we will talk about globalization and what does it mean for us migrant workers, especially for us Filipinos. So we'll have Joey Calugay of IWC Immigrant Workers Centre, who is based in Montreal, later on. But first, we'll have
a song from a Canadian independent band, Obiju, Balikbayan.
We feel the
And for tonight, we'll have our feature interview now. And for our topic for tonight, we'll take migrants' rights approach to the issue of global labor migration and what is called globalization. For our guest, we have Joey Calugay, coordinator of Montreal-based Immigrant Workers Centre, or IWC, and he's also the community organizer in charge of the Temporary Foreign Workers Program campaign for the IWC. He's also representing Bayan, Canada, which is a formation of different mass-based organizations of Filipinos here in Canada. So, Kuya Joey?
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for gracing us tonight for Radyo Migrante.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll take off from your community organizer hat. As a community organizer for migrant workers in IWC, what does globalization mean for everyday people, and how does the globalized economy make migrant workers vulnerable to exploitation?
It's actually a very complex matter and question to address.
Mm-hmm.
In 2006, the United Nations High-Level Dialogue on International Migration and Development proposed to set up the Global Forum on Migration and Development, or the GFMD. And hence, in 2007, it was hosted by first Belgium and then alternately by sending countries like Philippines and then Greece, then Mexico, Switzerland. So the central issues discussed and promoted in the GFMD, or the Global Forum on Migration and Development, is the Temporary Labor Migration Programs, or TLMPs. And what this signals is actually a growing interest on the part of international organizations like the United Nations to actively, advance the notion of migration as a development policy amongst developing states, and to facilitate the adoption of the temporary labor migration programs by these states. Now, TLMPs, like for instance, in the Philippines, you would know those more commonly as the labor export policy.
Mm-hmm.
TLMPs are actually neoliberal strategies. They're adopted by labor-sending states in cooperation with labor-receiving states like Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So, since the all-out implementation of neoliberal globalization, in this case, when we say that, we're talking about trade liberalization, privatization, and deregulation. We see that there's a chronic rise of underemployment and unemployment rates in labor-sending countries. And that's in large part due to the result of the cutting back on social services and favoring of casualization and flexibilization of labor domestically.
Mm-hmm.
And these things are demanded by multilateral organizations like the World Bank and the IMF. That's enforcing the neoliberal agenda of the Washington Consensus.
Mm-hmm.
So we see this phenomena also in European countries hit by the global financial crisis, manifesting in the European sovereign debt crisis, where harsh austerity measures are applied and affect their citizens in similar ways. So to address these issues of underemployment and unemployment, governments seek to encourage their citizens to earn their livelihoods overseas. That's basically that's been a trend anyways in neo-colonial states like the Philippines, where you don't develop the economy and create jobs, but rather you continue neo-colonial policies which keeps your economy underdeveloped, and globalization just heightens this or exacerbates this condition. So you see more and more people forced to migrate from their countries of origins,
Mm-hmm.
They arrive in labor-receiving states like Canada, thinking, well, this is it, they've made it, but in fact they face a set of new challenges, including discrimination and exploitation in their workplaces.
Mm-hmm. Lumabas sa isang news, no? I think I think sometime last year, na ang Pilipinas daw ay isang next Asian miracle. Iko-connect ko ito doon sa naganap na World Economic Forum noong May this year, doon sa Pilipinas pa mismo, na pinagmamalaki ni Presidente Benigno Aquino III na lumalago yung ekonomiya ng Pilipinas, yung GDP ay nasa 7%. Sa tingin niyo po ba may chance bang magkaroon ng mas maraming trabaho base doon sa report ng isang business magazine at saka nung World Economic Forum na naganap sa Pilipinas? Kasi nabanggit niyo forced migration, pero what do you think about the report that was released noong Mayo at saka nung isang business magazine regarding the Philippine economy? Economy. Yeah.
Kasi I've been at this a long time now. I've been a Filipino community organizer since early 1990s. Back then, even before Migrante International was created, we were already talking about labor migration and the amount of people leaving the Philippines each year. So, back in the 90s, we were talking about every day there were about 2,000 Filipinos leaving each day. And currently, there's about 4,800, almost 5,000 leaving the Philippines each day. So it's a big farce, really. Every time I hear that report, I picture those Facebook memes where you have ordinary Filipinos looking, like surprised and dumbfounded at the report of a 7% growth in the economy. Because where is that? Where is it going? Regular common people are not feeling the effects of that growth. What that's more likely indicates, the so-called growth, is basically the amount of profit generated by foreign capital coming in and being invested in the country. It's also probably indicates the amount of how rich the already landed elites are becoming as compared to the regular Filipino people. Of course, we hope for the best. We want the best for the Philippines. We're not naysayers and we're not trying to put down the Philippines and the Filipino people and their capacity. In fact, there's a large potential for human development as well as economic development and political and social development in the Philippines, and we all hope that can be achieved. But these reports are a big farce. For us to accept that for instance, my relatives there have no future. They feel they have no future. They're very desperate to leave the country to find a future for their families. The basic commodities are rising. I've heard that the prices of basic commodities like sugar and rice are rising. Meanwhile, the incomes of the people have not risen, and the rich keep getting richer there. So, I mean, just on migration alone, 4,800 people leaving each day is a significant number of people. It's more than doubled from the time that I've started, advocating for the rights of Filipino migrants. And that alone is an indication that, in fact, the growth rate that they're boasting about is not trickling down to the people, and it's essentially a big farce.
And maybe we can go a little deeper with why Filipinos still see Canada as a destination for work and for immigration in general, considering the limbo on the moratorium and some other controversies regarding the temporary foreign workers program. Can you link this all up with the relations of Canada and the Philippines?
Well, I mean, yes, I can. But the first and foremost, there's desperation. There's the desperate conditions of the people, which gives rise to some form of hope that they can get themselves out of this situation somehow. But that desperation, of course, is taken advantage of by countries like Canada and also by the Philippine state to encourage its people to go work or find work abroad as a form of a pressure valve to release the pressure that arises from high unemployment rates and poverty, and two, as a method of sending people abroad so that they can earn money and send the money back in the form of remittances. So there's a big push from the Philippines for them to do that. At the same time, labor-receiving countries like Canada, actively recruit people from the Philippines to come to Canada. I mean, Canadian recruitment agencies are prolific in Canada, in the Philippines. Everywhere you go, even in Baguio, you'll see, the Canadian maple leaf. People, become familiarized with that symbol, and you'll see recruitment agencies and all that aggressively recruiting Filipinos to come to Canada. And so there's really a big advertising and recruiting campaign for Filipinos to come. So it's not the fact that Filipinos just one day woke up and dreamt of Canada. No, there's really a big advertising and push and pull factors out there, and there's the relationship between Canada and Philippines facilitates that sort of exchange and that phenomenon.
Yeah,
for why people, it creates that want and that need to want to come to Canada.
And speaking of the exchange, what would be the trade-off if Canada is investing great investments in the Philippines? What would be the trade-off for, I guess, the benefit of Canada in that exchange?
Well, you're talking about it with regards to labor migration, with regards to recruiting Filipinos to come to Canada. The statistics are in, and the top-ranking source country for migrants and immigrants to Canada is the Philippines. What does Canada benefit from that? Well, it benefits from a strong workforce that has a strong work ethic, quite capable and trained. In fact, we were talking about neoliberal globalization and migration. Part of that system is labor-sending countries like the Philippines actually conform their technical and educational training around labor migration. So they really train the Filipino population, and education is trained around this sort of neo-colonial concept of training your people to be able to be good workers abroad and skilled workers abroad. So what Canada gets out of it is skilled workers, but also cheap and docile skilled workers.
Pagdating po ng mga migranteng Pilipino dito, nabibigyan ba ng Canada ang mga kababayan natin ng proteksyon laban sa abuso, sa pang-api ng kanilang mga amo, mga employer, kumbaga?
Kung ang pinapag-usapan natin ay mga migrante, no? Migrant Filipinos, first and foremost, the responsibility falls on the Philippine government these are Philippine nationals. And it must be the Philippine government that ensures their rights and safety while working abroad, especially if you're going to profit from their labor through the remittances that they send to your country. It's not enough to deem them as modern day heroes. It's important also to extend and your responsibility as a state to extend protection to your citizens while they're abroad. Specifically kung meron kang programa like the labor export policy. But on the other hand, while they're working in places like Canada as a state must extend its protection also to all workers working within its boundaries. The labor codes and protections and benefits that workers get in Canada must be extended to all workers, including migrant workers. Yes, so both states are responsible for ensuring the rights and welfares of migrant workers within the Canadian borders.
And that's an interesting point, because I will read some comments regarding the Bill C-24 that was announced just last week by Minister Jason Kenny here in Canada, and Chris Alexander of Immigration and
Citizenship and Immigration Canada.
Yeah, so I'll just read some passages here. Bill C-24 received final passage and royal assent, enshrining in law a dangerous expansion of governmental powers. The new law, ironically named the Strengthening Canadian Citizenship Act, weakens the bonds of citizenship, potentially threatening the very essence of citizenship. If the citizen has a connection to a foreign country, the minister may send a letter advising that this citizenship is under review. If the citizen fails to respond sufficiently, in the minister's estimation, he will be on a plane out of Canada to whatever country we can send him. In cases where the citizen believes he or she would thus be stateless, the onus is on the citizen to prove that he or she is not the citizen of any country or which the minister has reasonable grounds to believe the person is a citizen. A few reactions from this passages regarding the Bill C-24.
Yeah, Bill C-24 is I'm not an expert on Bill C-24, no, but with regards to that, it's really what it's showing is really Canada's closing of its borders to permanent residency and citizenship. Canada, we have to first look at Canada and its history. Canada is based on a colonial state. No, it's not. This was a colonialized country. As such, also this country was built on immigrant labor and immigration, people can trace back their family line from other countries. Most people can do that, except for maybe the native population, the First Nations. Now, in saying so, Canada is tightening up its borders and not allowing. Making it harder for citizens for people to actually become citizens, and even if they become citizens, there's still all sorts of preconditions before they can become real citizens. Let's say. Now, there's also policy changes around the temporary foreign worker program. In June 20th, they also announced. Controversial changes to the program, supposedly to protect Canadian jobs. But what these changes are really doing, for instance, they've announced that they're going to reduce the amount of time that migrant workers can renew their contracts here and stay in Canada, and that's from 4 years down to they haven't quite decided it yet, but they're going to announce that most probably it'll be cut down to half, which is 2 years' time. Also they've raised the amount of money that employers have to pay to apply for what was used to be called the labor market opinion. Now it's called the labor market impact assessment. Same thing, new name, but now it was, before they used to pay $275, I believe, and now they have to pay $1,000. Well, even before, when they had to pay $275 user fee to get the LMAI or the LMO, the previous LMO, it was basically downloaded on the backs of workers, and they were able to recoup this money through all forms of exploitation, whether it be usurious rental fees for people who had to stay in employers, provide what the employers provide as living quarters for them. They would take this out basically from rent. they would take this out from all sorts of crazy fees. And we've even seen at the Immigrant Workers Centre where a worker decided, hey, this job is not for me. This is too exploitative. I'm going to quit and just go back to my country. We've seen employers threaten them with saying that, well, if you're going to break your contract like that, then you should pay me back all the fees that I paid, including the fee to get the labor market opinion so that I can hire you. Now, with the $1,000 raise in that fee, the more exploitation that migrant workers will face in the employers recuperating that money. And the other thing is that now used to be that you can get up to 2-year work permits and labor market opinions, and now it's cut down to 1 year. So every year the employer has to reapply, and so does the employee. The migrant worker also has to reapply for a new work permit. So the costs go up for the migrant workers. Also, what that does is it entrenches the whole temporariness of the situation for the migrants. They're unable to. They'll be unable to stay in Canada. They're able to only stay a short period without any possibility under this type of regime to ever get permanency and permanent resident status. It becomes even harder and challenging for them. So what these changes are actually doing is it doesn't even address the issue of protections. It doesn't address the issue of the exploitation that the migrant workers face. What it's doing is entrenching the temporariness and under the justification of protecting Canadian jobs, quote unquote.
Ano pong gusto nyong makita mula po sa Canadian government dito sa malaking issue na nagawa nila dito sa Temporary Foreign Workers Program?
You mean aside from jumping off a cliff? No, all jokes aside. All jokes aside, I mean, what I would have liked to seen is higher wages, better conditions, access to permanent residency if they so wish. I would have liked to see some sort of policies or programs or laws that ensure that protect workers from reprisals should they complain about their work conditions, and reprisals which includes deportation or which includes the precarity of their status here in Canada. So, really the central to all of this is their ability to enter Canada as permanent residents, since this program is becoming a replacement to the regular immigration program here in Canada.
And for you, personally, as with your background as a community organizer advocating for migrants' rights, what do you see is the role of migrants in general, migrant workers in general, and how can the issues of Canadian labor and migrant activists be resolved?
We've been hearing a lot about that migrant work. It's a dangerous discussion that migrant workers are stealing Canadian jobs, and it's unfortunate because even so-called left parties and trade labor, to different degrees, labor unions have fallen prey to the whole concept of migrants stealing jobs. What that does is play into the hands of the divide and conquer tactics of the Canadian state, because the temporary workers program, aside from being an immigration program, is also a labor discipline tool. Even Jason Kenney himself, in a statement, in an article he wrote for the Globe and Mail, stated that in fact, there's only in the food industry where they put a moratorium, there's only really 0.21% of the total workforce are actually temporary foreign workers. So that shows that they're not really stealing the jobs. It's 0.21, and mostly in the western provinces where the unemployment rate is low. But on the same time, he said that, for instance, in Alberta, who's the biggest user of temporary foreign workers, where the median wages have gone up 31%. In the food industries who have the most amount of temporary foreign workers, the median wage has only gone up 8% since 2006. What that shows is labor discipline. And let me just explain. Labor discipline is essentially a tool to temper workers' demands for higher wages and better conditions. And the temporary foreign worker program is just another tool in their belt of employers and the capitalists to ensure that labor solidarity is not met because it's a very racialized program where low-skilled temporary foreign workers are coming from underdeveloped countries. And because now they can say to the regular population, to the Canadian workers, hey, if you don't want these jobs, look, there's temporary foreign workers that will accept these for less. No? So what the labor movement has to do is not concentrate on the divisions and the so-called differences between migrants and laborers and Canadian laborers. What they should concentrate on is labor solidarity, and that means putting at the forefront the demands of migrant workers, which is normalization, permanent residency, higher wages, better protection, better conditions. And that, I think, is the tactic and the strategy to go to raise everybody's labor standards here in Canada.
And earlier, you spoke in, I believe it was earlier, right? Discussion on the TFWP as well at IWC.
Yes.
Do you want to share some snippets about your talk earlier and final messages as well for our listeners?
You know, people are shocked to hear about the program. First, it's not very, even among migrant workers, it was mainly migrant workers, live-in domestic workers, and a few temporary foreign workers who were there, as well as migrant advocates and activists. And they're quite shocked. They're not, I mean, we hear it all the time, but we're not really quite sure what this program really means. It's very vague to everybody's mind. They only hear what the media puts forward out there, and that this is a program that's essentially Canada is using to exploit people and throw them away, creating disposable workers. But for domestic workers in particular, they were quite shocked to hear that Jason Kenney and Chris Alexander is going to come out with changes also to the live-in caregiver program. That's going to affect the live-in caregiver program and essentially phase it out in the end. So somebody asked, that doesn't remove the need for live-in caregiver programs. They're not going to create, let's say, nationalized daycare and so on and so forth that allow Canadian families, the ease of access to affordable daycare and home care for their elderly and sick. If they don't address that issue, then the need for live-in caregivers are still going to be there. What's going to happen? Well, I said most probably they're going to enter through the temporary foreign worker program as low-skilled laborers who will never have a chance to be for permanent residents. So it's going to become worse for live-in caregivers.
Kuya Joey,
yeah.
Malapit na po tayo magtapos. Unfortunately, may mensahe po pa sa mga nakikinig sa atin sa Radyo Migrante.
I'm sorry? Ano ulit?
May mensahe lang po. Final message po sa mga nakikinig sa atin.
So get yourself informed about the program and get out there and also reach out to our natural allies, including in the trade union movement, and to educate them about labor, what genuine labor solidarity means.
Okay, maraming salamat, Joey Calugay,
Yeah.
a coordinator of the Immigrant Workers Centre, a Montreal-based institution. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay kayo.
Thank you rin. Mabuhay rin kayo.
Salamat po.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, wow. What a very intensified topic tonight kasi it's been kailan ba 'to nagsimula? May mga rumors, 'di ba? Nagkaroon ng moratorium tapos ito ngang bills C-24. And it's scary kasi it really affects migrants, unfortunately. Mas malawakang, may naririnig ako, marami dong deportations and undocumentation of workers by the next year, no? What do you think?
But we also learned tonight a very good expression that we can use as advocates for migrants' rights or whatever is your position in these issues is labor solidarity, genuine labor solidarity for us. Whatever is your position here, Canadians or Filipinos or migrants in general should work together and stand for basic human rights for you to work and to be able to stay and for you to raise up your family in good working conditions.
Exactly. Up next, gaya ng sinabi ni Ish kanina, ay nag-participate po tayo doon sa World Pride Parade celebration at nagkaroon tayo ng puso na migrante kaninang tanghali. Good evening, this is Radyo Gamana from Radyo Migrante on CHRY 105.5 FM, your leading source for diversity. We are here participating at the 2014 World Pride Parade here in Toronto, and with me is a union organizer who will introduce herself. Yes, good evening to you.
Good to be with you today.
For you, what is the significance of the Pride celebration?
Significance of Pride is coming out and showing your support of different kinds of people, and that we should all be treated equally and with dignity and respect, and live life, enjoy your life, and be happy with who you are, and we should all be inclusive of others. I work for UFCW Canada Local 1000A. I'm an organizer with them. Over the last 25 years, I've done a lot of human rights work, both with my local and with our national office. And I really value diversity. I think it's important to try to submerge yourself as much as you can in different cultures and understand and see the best of that's what makes Toronto great, right? It's that we can enjoy the best of every culture and learn from each other and be very accepting of each other. I grew up around Bathurst and Wilson, and my area became much more Filipino through my teen years. And, I got to know that community very well, and I can say that they are wonderful for standing together for issues and things. And I think we should look to Migrante and to the Filipino community in general more often, because they are really leaders in understanding others and being able to immerse themselves in another culture and be accepting of other people and join together everybody and keep everybody strong.
Thank you so much, Rhea.
Thank you, Rhea.
Hi, I'm Alex and I'm with IATSE today, and the significance for me is 40 years of Pride activism. I started in 1973 campaigning in England for the Campaign for Homosexual Equality, and here we are in 2014 with legal and civil marriage made available in the UK, Canada, of course, who was the forefront of this, and now in many, many states in the USA. Unfortunately, we still have brothers and sisters all across the world internationally whose gay, trans and sexual rights are actually in danger, and they are constantly persecuted, so we have to keep up the fight internationally in other countries such as Uganda. On this day of days, it's a day to celebrate everything we've won. In 40 years the world has changed. People of the world, I am extremely proud of you, and I'm proud to represent you here today.
Thank you so much.
My name is Naveen Mehta. I'm General Counsel and Director of Human Rights for UFCW Canada. Pride means everything to UFCW Canada. We want to ensure that we have a union that is diverse, inclusive, that represents all workers from all across the spectrum. And we want to ensure that not only do these workers feel safe in the public, but that they feel safe at their workplace. And part of being involved in the Pride Parade in a very robust way, because we will definitely have the largest and most fantastic float and the largest union contingent, is to make sure that they feel safe at their workplace.
Any message to our listeners listening tonight on Radyo Migrante?
Happy Pride and God bless Migrante.
Thank you so much. Magandang gabi po. Ito po muli sa Rhea Gamana sa Radyo Migrante sa CHRY 105.5 FM, your leading source for diversity. Kaharap ko po ay isang panauhin na siya mismo magpapakilala sa inyong lahat. At ang tanong ko sa inyo ay, ano ang significance ng Pride celebration para sa iyo?
Well, ang significance is to support diversity dito sa Canada at sa buong mundo. Especially sa karamihan ng mga member natin ng migrante LGBT community. So, sinusuportahan po namin yung mga pamilya, mga fambams natin in the LGBT community. This is Amy Biboso with the Filipino Migrante sa Canada in Ottawa, here in Toronto, supporting Pride 2014.
Hello, fambams.
Okay, so doon po nagtatapos ang ating Pulso na Migrante segment ngayong gabi. At bago tayo magtapos sa ating programa, announcements na tayo, Ish?
Community listings, call for submissions. Toronto-based literary collective Akdaan is calling for writers of Filipino descent in Canada and the United States and different migrant workers communities to submit your works under the theme of migration and migrant labor. Works will be published in December of this year. Please email your entries to grupongakdaan@yahoo.ca or look for Akdaan TO in Facebook. Anakbayan, Toronto is also happy to invite you all to a celebration of the Philippine struggle for true independence. Come and join in an afternoon of activities, performances, arts, games, and education. Diwa ng Kasarinlan 2014 is a celebration of Filipino cultural heritage hand in hand with the history of struggle. Some of the performers include Southeast Cartel, Uppercase Band, No Budget, Akdaan Poetry Collective, Pantayo Ensemble, Spin El Poeta, and more. That's on July 19th, 1 to 4 p.m. Ryerson University Student Campus Center, 55 Gold Street here in Toronto. You can email anakbayan.toronto@gmail.com.
And I was just gonna dadagdag ko lang, Anakbayan Toronto has been partnering with Filipino-Canadian Association at Ryerson to make this event a big and possible one. So
and Radyo Migrante is also looking for volunteers. Join the crew. Radyo Migrante is calling out for anyone who is interested to volunteer in these following positions: board operator, reporter or correspondent, researcher, social media archivist. We are also awarded the honorable mention for third language programming this year from the NCRA, or National Campus and Community Radio Awards, based in British Columbia. So, you don't want to miss this. You want to be a volunteer for Radio Migrante? Email us at radmig105.5fm@gmail.com or call 647-281-0652.
At yan po nagtatapos ang ating Radyo Migrante. Maraming salamat po sa pakikinig. Up next is Roy Green of Odyssey. Maraming salamat po. At ang ating huling awiting ngayong gabi ay Nasyak Ako by Levi Abad. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat.
See you all, fambams.